Say what you will about Godzilla Evolved being pink, but how is this evolving Godzilla that's pink? Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew and today we're continuing our review marathon with the NECA Godzilla line. We're almost done. After this we just have to do the King of the Monsters figures. And for this one we're going to be taking a look at the NECA Shin Godzilla Spitfire version, or the Atomic Blast variant. So this was before NECA, or I guess Toho, was kind of like demanding companies to stop using the word atomic and just call it like Spitfire, Heat Ray, or actually I think they were calling some figures like Spitfire, like the Spitfire 2014 from Monster Arts, but regardless, Heat Ray was kind of like the general namesake for a little while, and this was before that. Anyway, so this is, of course, NECA. It was one of two figures from their Shin Godzilla movie line that depicts him in a purple hue spitting off his atomic breath. And this was actually the first of the two that I got before I bought the bootleg of the original. This one was a gift from my sister, so thank you very much. Of which this is still in actually decent condition. Has it been used? Yes, it has, but it still has got quite a lot of merit. So with that said, we're going to be taking an updated 2025 look at the King of Monsters in pink. Technically purple, but it's pink. So before I actually just quickly start, I should probably clarify that I did give this guy a bit of a rinse in between takes. So he is going to be a bit wet throughout this review because he's still drying, as you can kind of see in the socket, a little reflective. Anyway, also, this is going to be the original release, not any of the reissues in like the fancy style poster box packaging with the Shin Godzilla movie poster on it, the one where it's like standing almost full body. Yeah, that one. So yeah, this is the original one in the clamshell, which I think, to my knowledge, this was the final release in the clamshell boxes before they moved over to more like the 5-panel packaging. Anyway, so for the face, we have a brand new head sculpt from the original. The new head sculpt is going to be having his mouth wide open, and as you can see, the details do make a return with the various bumps and crevices, the tiny beady white eyes with the small black pupils that are actually really well painted. Let's actually kind of get in there and really get like a good sense of like what we're working with here. Look at that. There you go. So it's actually pretty well sculpted. I want to get like a good detailed look at this. So yeah, we got like a ton of like dry brushing, and that eye's a bit off center, quite a bit. It's kind of funny actually seeing it sculpted in, but yeah, there is that. We have a bit of dry brushing when it comes to the actual face, so of course with the red kind of seeping through the black over spray, and just to kind of extend back outwards. Oh, my throat. We have the individually painted teeth. I can't really say they're individually sculpted because they're kind of like sculpted together. That just looks like they're individually sculpted, but no. The teeth kind of start right there and they kind of work their way around throughout the whole head, as you can see, and then the bottom jaw splits into two. And I do want to talk about like the part where like Spitfires on repaints that I've seen on various listings. I did see that it does look quite a bit better than mine. Here, it definitely has like the pink, and then it kind of dry brushes it with a bit of a darker purple, but I feel like it kind of stops too early on mine because it just has the base coloring after a certain point. There's a bit of pink, but it just looks more like I don't even know how to call it. It looks like he's eating something. Also, the peg hole, I feel like could have been done a little bit better. It almost looks like he has like a third eyeball, which is a bit iffy. You kind of actually see inside there. It's very much red in there. But yeah, the mouth detail actually does look pretty well nice. And you do have like a bit of like a magenta, purple to red going on, so that does look really well done. And I do like the triangular look of the actual head shape. Just to kind of move the jaw down because I don't think I really covered a whole lot. There's the bottom of the jaw where it splits. Now for the neck. How do I best put this? The neck is very much colorful. it has the purple dorsal plates with the white kind of like base, and then the black tips mixed in with the red at the base of its body, and then of course back to the gills, which are going to be kind of painted a little bit purple. It's a bit sloppy, like half of it here is painted, half of it's not. This section's missing, this whole thing is painted, that section's missing, so on and so forth. So it does look a bit sloppy, especially for NECA's earlier days, because to my knowledge, even like things like the 1954 Godzilla were actually really well painted with its cracks and crevices, but here it just doesn't really look that right. I think same could also be said for the collar, the collarbone. I don't know why I struggle to say collarbone, but you can kind of see that like it kind of is very, very thick. Like there's no substance to it really. All they just really did was take a brush and just kind of goop it on there. You could maybe argue that it was trying to go for like a very glowy illuminating effect, but I feel like the mouth, even though it does dial back on the purple paint a bit than it should, did a much better job than this. And also a bit of mine is missing the paint, so yippee. Also, we do have a bit of nice more wrinklage and detailing and scales, so there are a bit of extra details to work with there, so that's pretty good. Next up, we're actually going to just immediately talk about the dorsal plates. I've got a bit of like an issue with my dorsal plate, like where this back one was like bent right out of the box, and I've had this thing for like at least like 7-8 years, so to this day I still can't get this thing to properly unflex, quote unquote. So I guess I'm stuck with the bent dorsal plate for the rest of my life. Anyway, the dorsal plates could be a bit better because really there's a lot of white space and a lot of purple space. Again, I know reissues definitely fix this problem, but at the same time, for my personal copy, I'm allowed to judge what I have and only what I have. And that said, what I do have isn't necessarily the best. This purple, beautiful. If the whole back was just this purple, I don't think I would be complaining. It has a nice display presence of purple. Like this big chunk, and then these like little dorsal fins back here looks actually kind of like wrapped around to the other side. Where you can see a bit more of the purple here. But the problem is the white is just too obvious. Like it's not really transitioning. It's not really the base of it. It almost looks like, you know what it looks like? They painted it purple originally, but they had like a ton of this white paint and it like seeped through it. That's honestly kind of what it looks like. Again, I know that NECA tried to do like an illuminating effect, but honestly, it doesn't really look that great. And the tips of the plates being black really kind of confuses the whole like look, because you'd think if they were like illuminating, because keep in mind, Shin Godzilla's almost whole fin illuminates, then this thing would have been applied a little bit better, but it's a little iffy. But the dorsal plate mold is still really well done, and I do dig it, especially like these back plates and like these more smaller plates, and then of course you have like the sides, the outskirts of the actual dorsal fins, so those are actually done really well. I feel like another thing what I can give this figure is definitely going to be the red accents on the torso and the arms, because the arms, while small, have a lot of rich, muscular, fiber-like details that just look swollen and very, very withered. And you see all like the muscular vein details, especially how skeletal it looks. And like, come on, my boy Shin, you gotta kind of work out those arms. Then again, look who's talking. Anyway, look at the arms just in general, and the claw paint actually looks pretty well applied. Granted, it doesn't have like as much shading as you would expect, but for the size of the arms, I really do dig it. Do we have some like red spots because of the articulation? Yeah, I guess because like they may have missed it, but whatever. The actual like red is just done really well where there is done well red. And here we have the actual like chest and stomach and pelvis. Again, this is actually what the purple should have looked like. at least on the collarbone and the gills. This is what it should look like. It should have been like more in the gaps and really peering through as if it's like what this thing is glowing and is about to kill you. And the red here again, it's done so well. A bit of like the side profile where we do get more like the muscular veinature type colorization, as you can see there. For the thighs, Shin Godzilla's big meaty thighs, which yes, they're big here, but they're not as big as I don't think they are in the movie. So we have all this like crisp detail here, and all this like very, very muscular curvature detail. Again, it just looks very mushy, and it looks very weird. And I again think that's what Shin Godzilla is supposed to look like, very withered and such. And we also have a bit of like extra detailing, like more towards here. It is like a bit smoothened out here. I'm not quite sure what this is from, because you can see that this part's like these few bits here, and here are very well smoothened out. My guess is that maybe like the mold just didn't seep well into the press the NECA wanted, so maybe there's that. I'm actually just noticing that now. Yeah, even a figure you've had for almost 10 years still surprises you to this day, huh? I like those types of figures. Going back to this side, we actually have a bit more like the red detail going towards the kneecap. And this part kind of dials back on the red. So it's definitely inconsistent, but I think I would have liked a little bit more consistency. The red here on the knee, lower knees, like the shin, pun of the year. We actually have a bit more of the red here seeping through the gaps, and I do like it. As well as the feet, which kind of dial back on the red paint. And also, if you're noticing, it doesn't have the extra toes. Yeah, NECA only opted to go for the 4 toes, which is a bit weird because, that's kind of like one of Shin Godzilla's defining characteristics. Also, if you're wondering, yes, there is no extra finger on the hands. And the claws here do look very well done. I love the shading on them. And again, they just look very crisp, and I do love the look of them. Bottom of the feet, take it or leave them. And the tail. I kind of have mixed opinions about the tail. Well, mainly with articulation, but we'll talk about that. The paint. Why couldn't the whole figure look like this? Like, look at this purple. Look at how it's mixed in with the white. Where it's dark, it's dark. Where it's light. This is what the purple should have looked like. The whole figure. And even then, it kind of loses it a little bit with the next 2 segments. But actually does keep a good job with actually like keeping the red as well. Also noticing there's a bit of like purple accents. Oh, the live beauty of HD recording, ladies and gentlemen. And for my personal least favorite part of the figure is going to be the tail itself, where it meets the head. Because there's really not a lot to talk about. It is just a basic curved Godzilla tail. And we have the tail on the face, which there actually is no face, but we do have a bit of like purple, kind of, mostly white paint. And of course, again, like I may mention, the second face is not there, but we do have a peg hole. So, with that said, what do I think of skeleton paint? I think that the Shin Godzilla, in my personal opinion, I do think it's a bit better than its original. Then again, I am basing it off of bootleg and pictures I've seen online. But for my personal taste, there's still some parts of this guy that I feel like could have been done a little bit better. Could have been done like a little bit more up to NECA's then quality, because the purple on the back and even the purple on the collarbone, they had the right color choice with the purple, especially here on the 2 the 2 base tail pieces. This is what the whole figure should have looked like. Not like this, where it almost looks like it's unfinished. That said, I think the red detail work and the actual paint aside from it is near perfect. It's very chaotic and has a lot going on. In some ways that's good, some ways it's bad. That applies to this figure too. But if I had to personally give a score, I would say let's go a 7.5. It's very cool where it's cool. It's not that great where it's not that great. And one piece of it is just not that good in general. But overall, yeah, I've honestly seen worse. So, Sculpt and Paint, I would say gets a 7.5. Just a quick side note, is anyone gonna go see the Shin Godzilla re-release? Yeah, it's happening next month in August. Let's move if you are, much like the next segment, which is articulation. Now, for the first time in NECA Godzilla history, and to my knowledge, I think the only time, we don't actually have a jaw hinge. We have a big split jaw, obviously, because it's all one sculpt to accommodate the beam, but we can actually get a pretty good rotation as well as a side to side, up about this far, down about this far, so not too much up and down, but we do get a nice side to side, again 360. The neck really enhances it by allowing you to go all the way down. There's a bit of a crowd on my fingers because I just got done eating spaghetti, and then raise it up this high together. You can go to the left, to the right, and you can actually kind of make it loose, so you can kind of go like a full 360. Although I think that's just because of the way that like it almost pushes the rod out of place, so do keep a bit cautionary with that. For the shoulders, quote unquote shoulders, we can go up, down, forward, and back. There's a mild rotation there, but you're not gonna get too much out of. Straighten out, bend in, and rotate like that. Swivel hinge here at the wrist, not too much there. I hope it's not broken. Okay, good. It was kind of loose, like in the peg there for a sec. We have a ball joint here at the waist, so not too much movement. You can go a little side to side, mild tilt, mild back and forth. Again, it's very mild, and even if you could, the rubber fins would scrape up against each other, so do keep in mind of that. The legs, we can go kind of out to the side a bit. We can go a full 360 right there, and you kind of taught me when I was talking about like the red paint. Essentially, the whole figure, like in base, is like red plastic with black accents over top, when I think in reality it should actually be reversed. It should be black purely with the red kind of seeping off. Actually, I think that's whatever. Anyway, yeah, full 360. This left leg is a bit tighter than the right leg. For the knee, you can get a hinge movement as well as a swivel. Hinge and swivel. And a ball joint here at the foot, which you can go up and down, left and right. See this one? A little bit more freed up. And you can also do a full 360-degree rotation. And for the tail, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of ball joint, but you can't really use it. See, the whole let's actually talk about it briefly later, but you can actually do get some decent side to side with the base if you rotate it, and then if you try to like bend it, where it looks a bit more natural. It does look a bit fluid, although if you do bend it down, you're gonna get some pretty nasty gap. Although there is a bit more sculptage, it's not really meant for that. And then from here to here is gonna be pure bendy wire, but I have a QC issue with mine. Let's see if I can actually pop it off. So popping off the bendable part of it, my tail actually has, this is actually like the closest I've actually seen in a while. You can actually see that the bendy wire has poked through the rubber and over the years has started scraping up against the ball peg, which is why I don't move this thing a whole ton, but really you should be able to get like about the fluid movement. And because of the fact that it's misplaced, I cannot get this thing to move. This literally feels like a thing of solid plastic, although it's clear that it does have a metal wire. So whatever happened at the NECA factory, that is definitely a QC issue. And so for articulation, also just to clarify, this tail tip does not have a ball peg of its own. It is entirely glued in. So that clarification out of the way. What did I mean by the articulation, you couldn't really use it? Well, let's break this down. The articulation, technically speaking, it has a lot of joints. It has a bit of head joints, arm joints, waist joints, leg joints, and tail joints. A bit of everything that you'd at least want from a Godzilla figure. The only thing that it would really be missing, so to speak, is a jaw hinge, but that it's Spitfire, so it doesn't really need one. The thing that I mean by the articulation is that the NECA Shin Godzilla, upon design, was meant to be in one specific pose, and then they cut the articulation. Because when you're sculpting a figure, you sculpt it in a certain pose. It wasn't like, it was obviously the same thing for Shin, but I really doubt that NECA actually took the time to look at this and really decide how it should move, because that's the problem here. The tail especially is evidence of it because it breaks away and it's pre-posed. Yes, Shin Godzilla's tail does look like this in a neutral stance, but I feel like if NECA really wanted to give this thing the maximum treatment as far as the articulation is concerned, the tail would have had to be like maybe a bit like flat on the ground. Then they made the articulation cuts and engineered it in a better way than just this, where you're basically forced to keep upright like this for the entirety. And also that's another thing, mine kind of has a tendency to droop, so yay. That's not necessarily a fault on NECA's, it's more like maybe my own my own problem over the years. But that said, I'll say that you can get some nice poses like of the head, like maybe shooting the beam upward to the sky, or maybe having him bent over a bit. But as it stands, you can't really use a lot of the movement, especially since Shin Godzilla is a rather static creature. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the grand scheme of things as well. So for articulation, I'm going to give this thing a 7 out of 10. Good articulation, but you can't really use a lot of it without it looking awkward. Next up is accessories. What's a bit of Godzilla? Spitfire versions with a bit of firepower, huh? Well, thanks to our folks in NECA, they actually came with two Spitfire beam effects. Atomic breaths. I don't know why I keep saying the word Spitfire. One's a bit longer than the others. I mean, it really doesn't matter which beam goes in which, but essentially you have the head beam and the tail beam. And I'm just gonna come out and say it, NECA. This is definitely gonna be your worst beam effects of your Godzilla line. Let's talk about them. So for the actual mold, this is kind of what I mean by being the worst, because yes, they do have quite a bit of detail work on them, but much like the body, it doesn't have a lot of purple. Like, yes, it has a mild purple spray towards the middle, but you can even see at the tip that it's like translucent. And it's so obvious that there's a metal wire like going here. Like, this isn't a bendable wire. I don't know why. Is it? I don't know. I felt something in there. Really hoping I didn't break that. Anyway, but yeah, this thing is not a bendable wire. I don't know why it would be, because Shin Godzilla's beam is straight. And it's mostly just a white thing of plastic. Like, in my personal opinion, you guys should have just done what you did with the V2 Godzilla from 2019. I know that would come a little bit later. But essentially you have this metal rod and some okay sculpted details. Kind of more on the flat side. But yeah, you take this peg and you're going to see the peg hole in the mouth. And you're going to literally just peg it in there. Boom. he is spitting off the beam. It looks okay. I say it looks okay because that metal rod is still kind of exposed, even if you get it like really shoved in there. Also, if you're wondering what this like piece of glue is, it's literally just that, it's glue. I tried to like thicken up the metal plastic when I was younger, but I didn't realize it didn't work on plastic. It worked on metal. It only worked on plastic. So when I shoved it in there, I just kind of scraped it towards the front, and it's been there ever since. And as for the tail beam, again, more or less the same thing. It's just a bit smaller. Realistically, you can go in any which way you see, please. Let's actually kind of get into frame. So, a little peg hole in there, stick it in. At least it covers most of it. But I mean, that probably could just be because of my glue. There you go. And there you go. He is shooting the tail beam. So, I can't really get it into frame because if I do it like this, then it's gonna bump up into my Titan Godzilla from Playmates. But essentially you get, all things extended, the longest NECA Godzilla that is ever released. I don't know if this is longer, like a presentation-wise, say longer than the 24-inch long Godzilla. I'd actually have to look at the measurements on this thing. I don't have a ruler or like a measuring tape on hand. But I'm honestly a bit as far as like the display of this thing goes. I think it's cool in concept, and NECA had all the ingredients for this thing, but I don't know. Something about it, I guess just because like the beams themselves don't do a whole lot of justice as far as like the purple itself, all the detail that should go into a beam effect like that. And this isn't going to be like anything like out of the ordinary, but NECA is known for cramming in a lot of accessories with their figures. So, in my personal opinion, this should have also came with maybe some of the other beams of style that the Shin Godzilla has in the film. Like, for example, the smoke breath. We could have gotten like this little dome that you like plug into his mouth, or maybe have him bend over and rest into his mouth. Or the fire effect. Could have done that pretty well. I guess you'd be stuck with the 56 KOTM Godzilla beam effect. But that said, the beam effects we do here are, I'm going to say it, a bit on the mediocre side. On one hand, they have a very nice display presence, being a very long, and you're going to have a lot of shelf space, and they're great for display. That said, the actual quality of the beam effects, not very good. I don't think it was me, but I remember on a listing, it was broken, like right out of the box. So, not really necessarily the best. But for what we do have, it was pretty good. This is a good display, but the beam effects themselves, not very good. You do have a bit of display variety. I mean, you can swap the beams, maybe swap that beam out, leave that beam in, or take that beam out, put that one in. And also, I don't imagine them doing the back beams, because otherwise you'd have like a dozen peg holes in the back, so that would look a little But really, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 as far as the actual accessories go, so there is going to be that. Being your average 6-inch tall figure, 6.5 more precisely, this guy is going to basically be quite a solid presence in a 6-inch display, with featuring some other Godzilla figures of the same scale. Here he is with the Bandai MMS Shin Godzilla, the original release, I should clarify, and the next review in the NECA line, the NECA Godzilla 2019 V1 from Godzilla King of the Monsters. And for some other size comparisons, here he is with the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla 2014, my latest figure, actually now technically, so to speak. I mean, technically, yes, my newest figure, because I did order those, the lamp and the Bylante MMS figure before I got this guy, but I opened them when I came back, so whatever. Really define newest for me. And the Diamond Select Toys Bust Bank Godzilla 1989 from Godzilla vs. Biollante, or as you longtime channel viewers know him as, Derpy Godzilla. And finally, the last size comparison, with the comparison you guys have probably been waiting for, the original release NECA Shin Godzilla from 2016, bootleg version, I should probably clarify, and the closest thing I have to the SH Monster Arts Godzilla 2016, the Godzilla Ultima, yes, from the world of SH Monster Arts, because why the hell not? Anyway, I do plan on picking the original release up. I am very close to. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off, but we'll see. We'll see if it happens. Then at this point, let's close this out. And so for my final thoughts, for the final, not chronological as far as timeline is concerned, but the last Toho Godzilla chronological film-wise goes, this was, or from NECA, I should probably clarify, this was a pretty way to kind of end it off. On the surface, this figure does provide a lot of good things. It has a very nice sculpt, very nice paint, and a well amount of articulation with accessories that do add to a decent display. That said, the articulation is kind of damned because this thing was mainly designed to be in one super specific pose, then given articulation, probably like, it's almost as if NECA was planning a whole new Godzilla line with statues. Really wouldn't have minded, but I mean, hey, we got this. The accessories, the beam effects themselves aren't done really all that well, in my personal opinion, and are definitely going to be the weakest part of the figure. And there are some parts of the figure I feel like could be a little bit better sculpted or painted, and even for NECA during that time, I don't know, there's just something like, this looks a bit iffy, the mouth looks a bit iffy some places, and that peg hole, like, my god, there had to have been a better way, because it literally looks like an eyeball or a butthole in the mouth. Anyway, this is definitely going to be, again, the weaker of NECA's Godzilla releases for 2016, but it's definitely going to be a lot more expansive. So in my personal opinion, I would just suggest get both of them. Resale, from what I'm looking at, ranges from about $40 to $60 on eBay before shipping. So if you find one that's not a bootleg and actually in somewhat mint condition, used condition, fair condition, has both the accessories, pick it up. It's a pretty nice of purchase. And I mean, it's that, or you shell out like $300, $400, or you try to get your kidney donated just so you can wrangle up the money to get that Monster Arts variant, Fourth Awakening version. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next review, which is going to be the final film of the NECA Godzilla review line for 2025. See you guys later. Peace out, everyone.